Bruchim haboim, welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Nun Beis Amud Beis, 4 lines down from the bottom at the new Mishnah. Our Mishnah continues to discuss animals that are able to go out into the Rishus HaRabim with certain collars and leashes, either because it protects the animal or it's in order to then control the animal. Says the Mishnah, Chamor yoytze b'mardas b'zman shehi keshura boy. A donkey is able to go out with its mardas. A mardas is the blanket that goes on a donkey. Donkeys get cold very easily, and therefore they require a blanket to then protect them from the cold. And therefore they're allowed to go out with these blankets, these mardas, on Shabbos, so long as they were going to be tied before Shabbos. Either because if they were not tied before Shabbos, then it implies that they don't really need the blanket, and therefore it's not going to then be necessary for Shabbos either. Or because by tying it on Shabbos, even if it's going to be with a kesher she'eno kayama, would be a problem because you have to lean perforce on the animal, and that would be meshamish behema. Zechorim yoitzin levuvin. The male sheep, which refers to rams, they go out with levuvin. Levuvim are here referring to heart-shaped sacks that are protecting, that are going over their productive organs. And that's in order then for them to prevent them from becoming weakened as a result of excessive mating. Rechelos yoitzois chuzois. Here we're talking about female sheep, and they can go out with their tails being tied up in order to then encourage them to mate. Kavulois, they'll also be able to then go out when their tails are tied down to their body, preventing them from mating. Ukavunois are bags that cover up the sheep that are newly born in order to then keep their wool from becoming dirtied, and allowing it to then remain white and pristine. So all of those they can go out with on Shabbos. Ha'izim yoitz ois tzroros. The Mishnah continues and says, goats can go out with tzroros. These are wrapped over their udders. Here it's either tightly wrapped in order to then cause their udders to become dried up and not produce milk, or loosely wrapped so that it will then mekabel, receive the droppings of the milk. Rabbi Yossi oiser bekulon chutz min harechelos hakavunois. Rabbi Yossi says these are all considered to be a masoi, and therefore all of these cases are prohibited for the animals to go out with the exception of the covering of the wool, because that is going to be considered to be a protective cover, and therefore that's going to be beneficial for the rechela, and they can go out with that. That's going to be shoymer the wool, so it doesn't get dirty, and therefore it's like a tachshit. It's like an adornment. Rabbi Yehuda oimer izim yoitz ois tzrurois. The izim can go out tzrurois liyabesh avol lo lechalif. It can go out when the covering is going to be tightly wrapped around their udders to then dry up the milk, but not in order to then catch the milk's droppings. For that, he says, they might fall off, and therefore a person might come to then carry it in the Rishus HaRabim. Says the Gemara on the very top of Nun Gimel Amud Aleph, Omar Shmuel v'hu shekshura lo me'erev Shabbos. That which we started off the Mishnah by saying, that the donkey can go out with its mardas, this blanket that's worn underneath its saddle, in order to then keep it warm. That's so long, provided that it was tied before Shabbos. Rav Nachman masnisi nami daiko. You can also medayik this from the Mishnah. Diktani, it says, Ein hachamor yotzei b'mardas b'zman she'ena keshura loy. The Mishnah, the Kamon, says that a donkey cannot go out with its mardas at the time that it is not tied. What are we talking about when it's not tied? Hechidami. What's the case? If you want to say it's not tied at all, that's what the mission is coming to say. Pshita. We don't need to teach that. That's straightforward. Because then it will fall off, and then the owner will pick it up and carry it. For sure that would be usher, therefore. What it's saying over here is that kshur, referring to if it was not kshur me'erev Shabbos, it cannot be then going out with that mardas. Therefore, it follows that our Mishnah is talking about it could go out if it was kashur, if it was tied from Erev Shabbos. But if it was not tied from Erev Shabbos, then it would not be able to go out. Shma mina. We're talking about Erev Shabbos over here. Tanya nami hochem. We have a brisa to this effect. Chamor yotze b'mardas bizman shekshura loy me'erev Shabbos. And here it says explicitly that the chamor can only go out with his mardas when it was kashur, it was tied before Shabbos. V'loy be'ukaf, and it cannot go out with its saddle, even if it was tied before Shabbos. Even the ukaf, the saddle, the donkey can go out with if it was tied before Shabbos, provided that it wasn't tied with straps, and provided that it was not also tied with a strap underneath its tail, because these two things would indicate that it's going out and going to then hold a load, which would be certainly also to be done on Shabbos. Boy minei Rav Asi bar Noson Rabbi Chia bar Ashi, he asked the following question: Mahu litein mardas al gabe chamor b'Shabbos. He asked, can a person's chamor go out with its mardas, again this blanket that goes underneath the saddle, to keep the donkey warm? Can he go out with this on Shabbos? Now here, he's asking over here, can just throw it onto the donkey on Shabbos, and then it'll go out in the Rishus HaYachid, in the Chotzer itself. Omar le mutter. He said to him, it's mutter. Omar le v'chima bein ze le'ukaf. What's the difference between this, throwing the mardas on the chamor, which you're saying is mutter to be done, but ukaf not? Ishtik. So he was quiet and answer him. Implying that certainly there's a clear difference, that indeed it's mutter, there's no problem for a mardas, but the ukaf is a problem. Asked the Gemara, ukaf she'al gabe chamor lo yitaltelena biyoda. You're not allowed to then carry the ukaf in one's hand on Shabbos. Ela malicha mevia b'chotzer v'unoifa me'elov. But the donkey can go back and forth in the chotzer, and that will then cause the ukaf, the saddle, to be thrown off its back. So we're asking hashta litol amris loy lahaniach mi boy. Now that you're not allowed to take it off because it's going to then be able to go off on its own, you're not allowed to metaltel it, the saddle. Lahaniach mi boy, not the saddle. We're talking about the mardas rather. No, we're talking about the saddle, the ukaf, that you're not allowed to then take off. So can you place it back on? Placing it back on is certainly worse, more chamor, it takes more effort, and certainly you couldn't be doing that either. Omar le, Rabbi Zera shavke. Rabbi Zera said, leave him alone. The fact that he made this chiluk and said that the mardas is mutter and the ukaf is osir, leave him. Kirabe svir, because he holds like his Rebbe. That's the shita that he's going with. The Omar Rav Chia bar Ashi Omar Rav toilim betraska lebehemo b'Shabbos v'kal b'chomer lemardas. Rav said that you can put a traskil, a basket which is used by putting different, let's say, barley inside the basket, allowing the animal to then eat more easily from that traskil. So you can go ahead, it says Rav, and toilet, you can hang this traskil on the neck of the animal. Certainly, how much more so you can also put the mardas as follows. Uma hasan de mishrum tanug shari. If over there, in regards to the traskil, it's only a benefit to make it even more comfortable, to be able to eat more easily from the traskel basket as opposed to then bending down from the ground and eating its food. So then, when it comes to mardas, which is for tsar purposes, that the animal shouldn't become too cold, certainly it should be permissible. That was Rav's shita, and therefore, even if it argues on the brisa, Rav Tana Upoli, the Gemara tells us many places. He's like a Tana, and he can argue with another Tana in a brisa, and therefore, this is the opinion that we saw before, and that's why he was shosek. That's why Rav Ashi didn't answer, because he went like his Rebbe, Rav. Says the Gemara, however, Shmuel argues, Shmuel Omar Mardas Mutter Traskel Oser. Mardas is mutter because indeed that's going to be a tsar for the animal, and therefore, because it will come cold and chilled, therefore you're allowed to put the mardas. However, traskel is oser. Traskel is only a luxury, allowing the animal to eat from the basket so it doesn't have to bend down to the ground. And therefore Shmuel argues on Rav. Also Rav Chia bar Yosef Amro l'shmaitze de Rav kamei de Shmuel. So Rav Chia bar Yosef was saying this over in front of Shmuel, what Rav had said. That Rav said that even the traskel is mutter. Omar lei. So Shmuel's response is Ihochi Omar Abba. If this is what Rav said, lo yada b'mili de shabta v'lo klum. Even though he referred, of course, to Rav, his bar plukta, who he had such an incredible amount of kavod for, and he used the term of endearment of Abba, but if Abba said that, then he doesn't know Hilchos Shabbos. Kisolik Reb Zera Ashkich l'Rebbe Ben Yamin Bar Yefes, when Reb Zera went up from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, and he found Rabbi Ben Yamin Ben Yefes, the Yossi v'Kamar le Mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan. He was sitting and he said in front, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, the following: Noistin mardas al gabe chamor b'Shabbos. You can place a mardas on a chamor on Shabbos. Omerlei, and he said back to him, Yiyasher. He said to him, that's a straightforward answer, very good what you said. V'chein tirgama Aryoich beBavel. And similarly, Aryoich, he explained this in Bavel. Aryoch Manu. Who is Aryoch referring to that he also said that you can do this? You can put the mardas and the chamor on Shabbos? Shmuel. Aryoch is referring to Shmuel. Aryoch was the name of a king, and therefore was a reference to Shmuel, who was a king in Hilchos in these dinim. The whole Rav Nami Amar. However, Rav also said this. He's also said that you can put the mardas and the chamor. So why didn't you say it in his name, Yiyasher? Ela Shamei Dahav Messiah Binyamin Yofes, he heard the conclusion of the statement. Ve'ein toilin trasnin b'Shabbos. And the conclusion, according to Shmuel, that Shmuel had said was that although you can put a mardas on the back of the chamor, but you cannot put the traskel, you cannot hang a traskel, a basket on its neck on Shabbos. On that he answered, Amar Yasher. He said straight up. That's a very good statement that you made. Indeed, this is what Aryoch had said in Bava, referring to Shmuel, who said the same statement, that indeed you can go ahead and hang the traskel on Shabbos. The Gemara then says, the Kuli Alma Mihas Mardas Mutter Maishna Me'ukaf. The Gemara now goes back and asks, what is the chiluk, the distinction between allowing a chamor to put a mardas in a chamor, but not an ukaf, not a saddle. Says the Gemara, shiny hasom the efsher de nafil mimele. When it comes to mardas, as was explained before in the brisa, that the animal can run back and forth, and the mardas will fall off without having to then touch it, without having to move it, and therefore that's why a mardas is mutter. Rapapa mar kan lechamama. Rapapa has another answer, the distinction he makes between mardas and ukaf. He says, kan, referring to the mardas, is to heat up, to warm up the animal from becoming chilled and cold. Kan litznanana. Well, over here, when it comes to the taking off the saddle, that's only to then cool it off. When it had a saddle on it that had maybe a load on the chamor, so it became heated up. So then taking off the saddle is a small type of benefit to the animal, so it shouldn't become too hot, and therefore it cools it off by taking out the saddle. Lechama is latzar. When it comes to the cold chill, the animal has tsar, therefore you have to heat it up by putting the mardas. Litzanana, less leitzara. However, when it comes to then removing the saddle, that's not much of a tsar. It only gives him a bit of comfort that it shouldn't become too heated up. V'hainu damar inshi, and this is what people would say, chamra afilu betu kufas tamuz krirola. The chamor is unique in the sense that it gets cold even in the summer month of Tammuz, where it's very, very hot outside. The chamor, the donkey, is known for becoming chilled very easily, and therefore it needs its mardas. The Gemara now goes back to that chiluk that Shmuel had made. Shmuel had said that when it comes to a traskil, Shmuel has said that the mardas is mutter, but a traskil is osir. Meisvei asked the Gemara this distinction. How can you say that a traskil is osir by putting a basket around the neck of an animal to allow it to be feeding more easily? Why is that osir? Ask the Gemara from the Brisa, Meisvei. Lo yetze asus bezonov shual v'lo besehirus shebein enov. A horse cannot go out with the zanav of a shual, the tail of a fox, which would prevent the ayin hara of a going on a sus, and not the red wool between its eyes to protect it also from the ayin hara and all types of things that could perhaps damage it. No, sorry, Rashi says is in order to give it a tachshit, an adornment which is unusual, and therefore this type of adornment which is unusual requires that the sus does not go out with this. Lo yetze hazov bekishaloi. This is something that we saw Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis, that in regards to how it saw that a zov who sees the ziva in a mission, so if he sees it once, he's tamei. If he sees it twice consecutively, either during the day, same day, or in 2 different days, he becomes a greater ziva, greater state of tuma. If he sees it 3 times in a row, either 3 times in the same day or 2 or 3 consecutive days, 3 times, then he has to actually bring a carbon. So in order to track how many times does he see, he puts a covering around his genitals, and then he can determine, here it says it's not considered to be a tachshit, and it's also not considered to be a beged, therefore he cannot go out with this kis. And goats cannot go out with a covering over their udders. Again, because it's not a tachshit, and it's also not going to be considered to be a beged. And in order to prevent the para, the cow, from eating somebody else's grass, they would put a muzzle, and therefore this is also prohibited for allowing a para to go out on Shabbos. The Brisa continues, this is the inyanenu. This is what we're bringing this for. It says that the young horses cannot go out with their traskelin on their mouths in the Rishus Harabim. And you cannot, the Brisa continues, allow the animal to go out with a protective metal shoe over its feet so that it doesn't get damaged by the rocks. And not with a kamea. A kamea is psukim that are written, certain shemos that are written in order to prevent the animal from becoming sick, even though it has a chazaka of working. This is a chomer by behema. We don't allow a behema to go out with a kamea, but we do allow a person to go out with kamea. However, a person can, yes, allow an animal to go out with a bandage over its makkah, and also with splints, 2 pieces of wood that are holding a broken bone of the animal, because these are things that the owner, if it falls off, is not going to pick it up and carry in the Rishus Harabim. They don't have much value. And the Brisa continues, "V'shlila hamodolda ba," and also the placenta that is hanging out from the animal. Upoikikin lazug bitzavara u'mitayeles lo imoy bitchatzer. And you can close up the bell that is on the animal, on the para, and it can go ahead and walk in the chatzar, because if it didn't have it wasn't stopped up, it would then cause the ringing of the bell, and that would be osir. Certainly cannot go out with this bell on to the Rishus HaRabim. Ketani, now the Gemara asks from this brisa on Shmuel. Ketani miyaz v'lo siyochin betraskelin shebepiyam Rishus Rabim. It cannot go out, the young horses, with a basket that we said before is hanging on the animal in the Rishus HaRabim. Now the Gemara is medayek from this brisa. L'Rishus HaRabim hu deloi ha b'chater shaper dami, but the chater you could. So why is it that Shmuel said that you cannot put a traskelin around the neck of an animal to allow it to feed more easily? Aren't we talking about something that's only a tainug, it's only a comfort, only a benefit to the animal, and still it's mutter, you see here in the Brisa, not like Shmuel. Answers the Gemara, loy, biketanim umishum tsar. We're talking about young horses who have short necks, and therefore it's a tsar for it to bend down and feed from the ground. Whereby if you put a traskelin, if you put a basket hanging around its neck, it's much more easy for it to eat without tsar. So this prevents the pain, the suffering of the animal from having to eat from the ground. And therefore, over here, it's different when it comes to a small horse, whereas Shmuel was talking about a long-necked horse, an older horse, which is easily can eat from the ground. Dekanami, the Gemara says you can medayik this as well. Diktani, for it teaches dumia dekamiya. It teaches dumia dekamiya in our brisa that we quoted. And the Yirmiyahu is talking about mishum choyli, for a sickness. And therefore, you can assume that we're talking about even a young horse which is susceptible to becoming ill, and therefore it's a proof that a young horse who has a short neck would be having difficulty, having tsar from eating from the ground, and therefore that's why it's mutter here in the Brisa, not a kasha on Shmuel.